However, in federal cases, radio silence typically signals that prosecutors are quietly constructing an airtight indictment. This manhunt has evolved far beyond a simple regional disappearance case in the Southwest. It has become a battle between cutting-edge science and a methodical, professional attempt to vanish without a trace. That figure on the veranda exposed his face, his facial hair, and potentially his genetic code on that abandoned hand covering. While court dates and legal motions loom on the horizon, the task force currently remains glued to that surveillance video. Detectives are hunting for the individual holding the antenna and the accomplice waiting inside the vehicle. Above all, they seek the split second where the scheme unraveled. The wilderness is massive, but it has boundaries. Time will tell what secrets the next 30 days bring to light. Down in a silent corner of Arizona, local statutes dictate how dark the night gets. You won't find glaring streetlights or porch beams, only a man-made void offering complete concealment. It was within this intentional gloom that Nancy Guthrie vanished into thin air. Whoever did this didn't just get lucky. This heist leveraged the very blueprints of the place, plotted with exactitude, carried out without a hitch, and crafted to stay off the grid. A full month has dragged on since she went missing. But asking about her location isn't the main riddle anymore. We need to figure out how someone gets wiped from a fortified house without a scrap of evidence left behind. The key might hide in a fragment nobody noticed, a specific item snagged by a lens for barely a heartbeat. Nancy Guthrie's case has officially hit the 30-day mark, a point where trails usually go cold and leads dry up. Yet, the case files suggest things are actually heating up. What started as a neighborhood mystery in a quiet enclave has morphed into a major federal manhunt. Looking at the clock, things seem straightforward enough. Nancy was inside her own house in the pre-dawn hours. One moment she was present, and the next, she simply ceased to be there. Nobody heard a tussle, no glass shattered, and not a single cry pierced the silence of the night. Detectives believe the person or people behind this knew their way around in a way that gives you the creeps. They had the floor plan memorized, they tracked her habits. Above all, they understood the terrain. That district enforces tight rules on illumination to keep the stars visible overhead. Locals see it as a lifestyle perk. Kidnappers see it as strategic cover. At first, the quiet nature of the crime suggested bad luck. However, once experts dissected the landscape and the clean break-in, the story changed. Everything about this screamed professional job. The lingering puzzle asks how they transported her from a lockdown property to a getaway car with 0 eyeballs on them. Detectives were on the verge of uncovering a clue proving the suspects tracked more than just the building. They had eyes on the surveillance feeds. Once day 31 hit, the priority switched from what happened to the mechanics of the act. Seasoned pros on the file point out that in our world of constant recording, disappearing is nearly impossible. Still, the individual behind Nancy's abduction apparently grasped precisely where the electronic eyes couldn't reach. Police files depict a scenario where the setting itself became a weapon. The absence of street lamps wasn't an obstacle. It served as the main asset for the snatch. It provided cover for maneuvering in what tacticians refer to as absolute shadow. Then you have the video evidence. A shape appeared by the entryway. The body language didn't show a nervous burglar. Every step was calculated. This person seemed to stare right down the barrel of the lens. That move proves they knew exactly how the house was protected. Moreover, reviewers spotted a peculiar anomaly. Foliage close by had been bent to obscure the view. Think about the planning that takes. You have to loiter on the grounds long enough to tweak the bushes without tripping an alarm. You have to know precisely what the camera sees. Police started wondering if this was a solo act or a team play. Getting a grown woman from her living room to a truck, keeping her quiet and moving through a pitch-black subdivision takes serious muscle and timing. That kind of heavy lifting usually demands a pair of hands, one to subdue the victim and another to drive the getaway. However, the clip revealed another clue. A thin, upright item stuck out of the suspect's jacket. It resembled a transmitter whip. If that's true, we aren't dealing with amateurs anymore, but high-level operators. Carrying a walkie-talkie implies live chat with a partner. It points to a spotter. It hints at a secured zone. The file looked like a bunch of brick walls until the team widened their net. Several miles out from the Guthrie home, a find shifted the scientific direction of the hunt. Someone had tossed a pair of gloves into the scrub. They looked like garbage at first, yet the lab techs spotted a link right away. The make and model of that gear aligned perfectly with what the prowler wore on the porch tape. Detectives expedited the evidence to the crime lab, praying for genetic material that would spit out a suspect. They compared the biological markers against federal records. The report returned with 0 hits. Even so, drawing a blank in the system doesn't render the find worthless. Basically, it implies our suspect has a clean slate with 0 felonies or previous arrests that would necessitate a DNA swab. From a detective standpoint, this guy is a total phantom without any trace of a rap sheet to track him down. Although the genetic evidence was a dead end, people started asking serious questions about how the crime scene was managed. Files showed that the Guthrie estate got tossed not just once, but 4 distinct times, with the initial sweep by the Pima County Sheriff's Office taking about 20 hours. 3 days down the line, the feds took the reins and executed a second top-to-bottom search of the place. Then they came back for round 3 because they realized they totally missed a camera sitting right on the roof during the first walkthrough. They also had to impound Nancy's car for evidence, a move that experts argue should have gone down within the first 6 hours. That 4th trip back to the scene was probably the most unsettling one of them all. Detectives went back specifically to inspect the septic system, since that is often the last dark place they look when someone vanishes without a trace. Each time you reopen a crime scene, you are gambling with the reliability of whatever evidence might still be there. Lawyers love to jump on these repeat visits to claim contamination, suggesting cops might have planted or shifted things around. The gold standard is a strict lockdown with a single entry point and one continuous sweep until the job is done. That clearly did not occur in this case. While the digital side of things was starting to get really intense, tech squads were scrambling to pull information from local hard drives that were not connected to any cloud server. This demanded a painstaking review of broken data frame by frame, but it eventually produced a sharper shot of the guy on the porch. Even with the low light, the tech wizards brought out key features like the cut of his eyebrows, the bridge of his nose, and the trim of his mustache. The suspect profile was sharpening up, especially with an outfit that pointed toward a specific line of work or way of life. Just as the picture got clearer, the whole investigation took a huge left turn regarding who was actually in charge. This wasn't just a small-town police matter anymore. Insiders confirmed the file was getting bumped from the Tucson satellite branch up to the main Phoenix field office, which is definitely not standard procedure. It represents a huge escalation, with reports stating that about 100 federal agents are now working the file. To give you some context, most major kidnapping cases get worked by a tiny fraction of that manpower. Throwing that many resources at it implies the feds are sitting on intel the rest of us don't have yet. They aren't merely hunting for a lost soul, they are tracking a whole network. And that is when the ransom notes showed up. The writers claim Nancy was down in Mexico, and bringing the border into this adds a scary layer of red tape. If she really was trafficked across international lines, this turns into a diplomatic nightmare involving foreign laws and treaty. Experts, however, aren't buying it. Foreign cartels almost never risk snatching a senior citizen right here in the States because the juice just isn't worth the squeeze. Typically, if someone gets grabbed for cash, the bad guys start talking right away. It is usually a straight business deal where you swap the hostage for a set amount of money, but these letters were super vague. Authorities haven't verified if they are real, and some pros think the whole thing might be a distraction. It looks like a calculated move to draw eyes toward the border while the real crooks stay local, so the Phoenix team split into special squads. One entire unit is focused strictly on setting up digital perimeters. They are trying to flag every cell phone that pinged near the Guthrie house when she vanished, but there is a catch. If the bad guys were using walkie-talkies like that antenna in the video suggests, they won't show up on any digital dragnet. They would be ghosts to modern tech, forcing detectives to rely on old-school shoe leather, like knocking on doors and talking to neighbors. Officers have been chatting up locals way outside the immediate blast radius of the crime scene. They are hunting for a lookout car that might have been idling miles down the road. Footage is still their best shot at breaking this thing open. Analysts are scouring tapes from traffic cams and shops to spot a car moving in sync with when that guy appeared on the porch. They aren't just hunting for a ride, they want a vehicle that's stuck to the shadows and dodge the high-def cameras at major intersections. The courtroom implications here are absolutely massive. Whenever they catch a suspect, the DA is going to lean hard on that cleaned up video and the genetic material from those gloves. Moving the file to the Phoenix Bureau means they can now tap into some of the most sophisticated crime labs on the planet. Those labs can do a whole lot more than just clean up a blurry picture. Tech specialists can utilize optical flow tech to calculate a subject's exact build and mass by tracking pixel motion. Forensics teams also scrutinize the gait, that distinctive walking cadence which identifies a human just as reliably as a fingerprint. Yet, the bureaucratic lag regarding the initial sweep of the residence continues to raise serious questions. Should the victim's car or that roof-mounted camera hold biological evidence, waiting 3 days to process them might create a massive legal headache. Then there is the forensic genealogy angle. With the federal criminal database coming up empty, detectives could pivot to consumer ancestry sites. Cross-referencing genetic material from those dropped gloves against public family trees allows them to hunt for distant cousins. It is the exact methodology that brought down the Golden State Killer, though the process is notoriously sluggish. Despite the high cost, it is frequently the sole option for catching a phantom. Entering month 2, the probe hits a pivotal stage. Having 100 feds on the ground implies that a major breakthrough is imminent, yet the community stays in limbo, waiting for the upcoming weeks to yield fruit from digital enhancements and geofence warrants. Identifying a specific vehicle would kick the entire operation into high gear immediately. The family has posted heart-wrenching updates, acknowledging the grim statistic that survival odds drop with every setting sun.